Maya walked through the crowded hallways of Lincoln High School like she was trying to be invisible. Her long, dark hair always fell forward, covering half her face. She kept her eyes down, watching her own feet move across the scuffed floor tiles. Her backpack hung heavy on one shoulder, and she held her books tight against her chest like a shield. Most kids didn't even know her name. She'd been at this school for almost 3 years now, but she might as well have been a ghost. In the cafeteria, she always sat alone at the corner table near the windows. Sometimes she'd eat her sandwich while pretending to read, but really she was just staring at the same page, hoping nobody would notice her. Nobody ever did. It wasn't always like this. Back in elementary school, Maya had been different. She used to raise her hand in class. She had friends. She even starred in the school play once. But then everything changed when her dad lost his job at the factory. The family had to move from their small hometown to this big city, into a cramped apartment that smelled like old carpet. Her parents fought more. Her older brother got angry all the time, and Maya just sort of shrunk into herself bit by bit, until the girl she used to be felt like a distant memory. The worst part about being invisible was that nobody cared enough to ask why. Teachers marked her present and moved on. Students brushed past her in hallways without a second glance. Even when she did speak in class, which was rare, her voice came out so quiet that teachers would say, "Speak up, please," and she'd just shake her head and look down, her cheeks burning red. But here's the thing that nobody knew about Maya. Every single day, she was counting down the hours until she could go home. Not because she hated school, though she didn't exactly love it either. She was counting down until she could sit at the old upright piano in her bedroom. That piano was the only thing she'd insisted on bringing when they moved. Her grandmother had given it to her when she was just 5 years old. It was beaten up and out of tune, with keys that stuck sometimes and wood that had faded from dark brown to a dusty gray. But to Maya, it was everything. Her grandmother had been the one who taught her to play. Those were some of the happiest memories of her childhood. She'd sit on her grandmother's lap, her tiny fingers reaching for the keys, while her grandmother guided her hands gently. "Music is magic, little one," her grandmother used to say. "When you can't find the words, let the piano speak for you." After her grandmother passed away 2 years ago, the piano became even more important. It was like having a piece of her grandmother still with her. Every evening after finishing homework and after her parents stopped arguing and after her brother locked himself in his room, Maya would sit at that piano and play. She didn't play the simple songs from her beginner books anymore. Over the years, she'd taught herself pieces that most kids her age couldn't dream of playing. She'd watch videos online, study the finger movements, practice the same measures over and over until her fingers ached. She played Chopin and Beethoven and Rachmaninoff. She played pieces so complex that her hands would cramp and her back would hurt from sitting so long. But when she played, something magical happened. All the anxiety that lived in her chest like a tight knot would loosen. All the words she could never say out loud would flow through her fingers into the keys. The piano didn't judge her. It didn't laugh at her or ignore her. It just listened, and it spoke back in the only language that made sense to her anymore. Sometimes her mom would stand in the doorway, listening with tears in her eyes. "You play just like your grandmother," she'd whisper. But she never pushed Maya to play for anyone else. She understood that this was private, sacred almost. At school, Maya made sure nobody found out about the piano. She'd drop music class after freshman year, switching to art instead because she couldn't risk anyone discovering her secret. The thought of people knowing, of people asking her to play, of people watching her, made her feel sick to her stomach. There was one close call, though. Last year, her English teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, had assigned everyone to write about their passion. Maya had written about piano, pouring her heart into 5 pages about what music meant to her. She'd described how it felt to play, how the notes could express sadness and joy and everything in between. She'd written about her grandmother and the old piano and how playing made her feel like herself again. Mrs. Rodriguez had given her an A+ and written at the top, "This is beautiful. Have you considered sharing this gift with others?" Maya had felt panic rise in her throat. The next day, she'd asked to speak to Mrs. Rodriguez privately and begged her not to tell anyone. The teacher had looked confused but agreed. The thing was, Maya knew she was good. She knew that the pieces she played were difficult, that most people her age couldn't handle them. When she watched piano videos online, she could see that her technique was solid, maybe even better than solid. But knowing she was good and letting other people see it were two completely different things. What if she messed up in front of people? What if they laughed? What if they expected things from her that she couldn't deliver? It was safer to keep it private, to keep it just for herself. That way, the one thing that made her feel alive couldn't be ruined by judgment or expectations or disappointment. At lunch, Maya sat at her usual corner table, picking at a peanut butter sandwich. Across the cafeteria, she could see the popular kids laughing loudly at their table. There was Kelly Martinez, captain of the cheerleading squad, surrounded by her friends. They all seemed so confident, so comfortable in their own skin. Maya couldn't imagine what that felt like. Sometimes Maya wondered what would happen if people knew about her piano playing. Would they suddenly see her differently? Would they actually talk to her? Or would they just think she was showing off, trying to be special when she was really just the weird, quiet girl? She shook her head, dismissing the thought. It didn't matter anyway. Nobody was ever going to find out. She'd make sure of it. The piano was hers alone, her secret world that existed only within the four walls of her bedroom. That's how it needed to stay. As the bell rang and students shuffled to their next classes, Maya gathered her things and melted back into the crowd. Just another invisible face in a sea of teenagers. Just another girl nobody noticed. And that's exactly how she wanted it. But life has a funny way of disrupting our carefully built walls. Sometimes the universe decides that staying hidden isn't an option anymore. Sometimes fate pushes you into the light whether you're ready or not. Maya didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. Her secret was about to be discovered, and there would be no going back to being invisible. The question wasn't whether she was ready. The question was whether she'd survive it. The announcement came on a Tuesday morning during assembly. Maya sat in the back row of the auditorium, as always, trying to make herself as small as possible. Principal Davis stood on stage with his usual cheerful smile, holding a microphone. "All right, everyone, settle down," he said, waiting for the noise to die down. "I have some exciting news to share. As you know, every spring we host our annual talent show, and this year is going to be our biggest one yet." Maya felt her stomach tighten slightly, but she relaxed. The talent show happened every year, and every year she successfully avoided it. It was easy, really. Just don't sign up. Simple as that. This year, Principal Davis continued, we're doing something different. We've invited families, local businesses, and even the mayor to attend. We want to showcase the incredible talents our students have, so start thinking about what you'd like to perform. Around Maya, students were already buzzing with excitement. She heard someone behind her say they'd do a dance routine. Someone else mentioned singing. Maya tuned it all out. None of this concerned her. She'd go to the show like everyone else, sit in the audience, clap politely, and that would be that. The assembly ended, and students filed out toward their classes. Maya was headed to third period when she heard someone call her name. Actually, call her name. She turned around, confused. It was Mr. Chen, the music teacher. He was jogging slightly to catch up with her, his tie bouncing as he moved. Maya's heart started beating faster. Why would the music teacher want to talk to her? She didn't even take music class. "Maya, hey, glad I caught you," he said, slightly out of breath. "Can we talk for a minute?" She nodded, unable to form words. They stepped to the side of the hallway as other students streamed past them. "So I need to be honest with you," Mr. Chen said, and his expression was kind, but serious. "I've heard you playing." Maya felt the blood drain from her face. "What? How? When?" "The music room is right below the library," he explained. "And sometimes during lunch I'm in there working. The sound travels through the vents. I've heard you playing piano up there for months now." Maya wanted to disappear. She wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. Her secret, her one private thing, wasn't secret at all. She felt tears starting to form in her eyes. Hey, it's okay," Mr. Chen said quickly, seeing her distress. "You're not in trouble. Actually, I wanted to talk to you because, well, Maya, you're incredibly talented. The pieces you play, they're not easy. Most professional pianists struggle with some of that repertoire." Maya just stared at her shoes, willing herself not to cry in the middle of the hallway. "I want you to perform in the talent show," he said. The words hit her like a physical blow. She immediately shook her head no, backing away slightly. "I know you're shy," Mr. Chen continued, "but this is too important. You have a real gift, and I think sharing it could change things for you. Plus," he paused, "I've already submitted your name to Principal Davis." Maya's head snapped up. "What?" she managed to whisper. "I submitted your name this morning." You're officially on the roster for the talent show. I can't, Maya said, her voice shaking. Please, I can't do this. Take my name off, please. Mr. Chen's expression softened but remained firm. Maya, here's the situation. I submitted you as part of the music department's contribution. If you back out now, it affects the department's grade participation numbers. I don't want to pressure you, but withdrawing would result in a penalty for the whole department. Maya felt trapped. This couldn't be happening. But I'm not even in music class, she protested weakly. You use the school piano during lunch. That counts as music department facilities. Look, I know this is scary, but sometimes we need a little push to do things we're capable of. Trust me on this. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Maya couldn't focus in any of her classes. Her hands were shaking. Her mind kept racing with worst-case scenarios. Everyone would be watching. Hundreds of people. She'd mess up. She'd freeze. They'd laugh at her. By lunch, the news had somehow spread. That was the thing about high school. News traveled fast, especially weird news. The quiet girl who nobody knew was going to perform in the talent show? That was definitely weird news. Maya was sitting at her corner table when Kelly Martinez and her friends walked past. Kelly was the kind of girl who seemed to glow with confidence. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect life. So I heard you're doing the talent show, Kelly said, stopping at Maya's table. Her tone wasn't exactly mean, but it wasn't friendly either. It was the tone someone uses when they're talking to someone they consider beneath them. Maya didn't respond, just kept looking at her sandwich. What are you going to do? Magic tricks? One of Kelly's friends giggled. I heard she plays piano, another girl said. Kelly raised her eyebrows. Really, you play piano? She said it like she didn't believe it, like it was impossible that Maya could do anything interesting. Maya still didn't respond. She could feel her face burning red. This should be interesting, Kelly said with a smirk. Good luck with that. The way she said good luck made it clear she meant the opposite. The group walked away laughing about something else. For the rest of lunch, Maya felt eyes on her. People who'd never looked at her before were glancing her way, whispering to their friends. She'd spent 3 years being invisible, and now suddenly everyone was noticing her. It was her worst nightmare. After school, Maya walked home slowly, dreading every step. The talent show was 3 weeks away. 3 weeks of anxiety. 3 weeks of people staring and whispering. 3 weeks of building dread. When she got home, her mom was in the kitchen making dinner. Maya dropped her backpack and slumped into a chair at the kitchen table. Rough day? Her mom asked, noticing her daughter's expression. Maya told her everything. About Mr. Chen hearing her play. About being signed up for the talent show without permission. About Kelly and her friends. About feeling trapped and terrified. Her mom sat down across from her and took her hands. Maya, sweetie, I know you're scared, but maybe this is a good thing. How is this possibly a good thing? Maya asked, tears finally spilling over. Because hiding doesn't make you happy, her mom said gently. I see you every day, walking around like you're trying to disappear. That's no way to live. Your grandmother gave you that piano so you could share joy with people, not hide from them. Grandma never made me perform in front of hundreds of people, Maya said bitterly. No, but she always said your gift was meant to be shared. She believed that. Maya pulled her hands away and went to her room. She sat at her piano but couldn't bring herself to play. Every time she touched the keys, she imagined an audience watching, judging. Her safe space didn't feel safe anymore. That night, she barely slept. The next day at school was even worse. More whispers. More stares. In history class, someone passed her a note that said, "Can't wait to see you choke on stage." She crumpled it up quickly. But the words burned in her mind. The 3 weeks until the talent show felt like 3 years. Every day, Maya's anxiety grew. She practiced at home, but her hands would start shaking whenever she thought about performing. She made mistakes she never usually made. She forgot passages she'd known by heart for years. Kelly and her friends made sure to remind Maya daily about the upcoming show. Little comments in the hallway. Fake encouraging smiles. It was clear they expected her to fail, and honestly, Maya was starting to expect the same thing. Mr. Chen checked on her a few times, trying to be supportive, but it only made things worse. The pressure was crushing. She thought about faking sick on the day of the show. She thought about her family suddenly needing to take an emergency trip. She thought about 100 ways to escape, but deep down she knew there was no escape. The day was coming whether she was ready or not. And she definitely wasn't ready. The night before the talent show, Maya sat at her piano at 11 o'clock, staring at the keys like they were a foreign language. Her hands were positioned over them, ready to play, but they wouldn't move. They just hovered there, trembling slightly. She'd chosen a piece weeks ago. It was called Clair de Lune by Debussy. It was beautiful and emotional, and she'd played it hundreds of times perfectly. But tonight she couldn't even start. Every time she tried to press the first key, her mind flooded with images of the auditorium, all those faces staring at her, waiting for her to mess up. Maya, her mom's voice came from the doorway. "It's late, honey. You should get some sleep." "I can't do this," Maya said, her voice cracking. "Mom, I physically cannot do this. My hands won't work. Look." She held up her shaking hands as proof. Her mom came and sat beside her on the piano bench, the same way she'd done 1,000 times when Maya was little. "Do you remember when you were 7 and you had to give that presentation about butterflies in front of your class?" Maya nodded slightly. She'd been terrified that day too. "You were so scared that morning you threw up. But you know what? You got up there and you did it. And afterwards you were so proud of yourself. You came home with the biggest smile." "This is different," Maya whispered. "This isn't just one class. This is the whole school, plus parents, plus the mayor. What if I freeze? What if my mind goes blank and I just sit there like an idiot?" "Then you sit there like an idiot," her mom said simply. "And then life goes on. Maya, the worst thing that can happen is you make a mistake. You're 16. You're allowed to make mistakes. Everyone will laugh at me. Maybe, or maybe they'll see how brave you are. Either way, you'll survive it. And honey, living your whole life afraid of what people think, that's not really living at all." Maya knew her mom was right, but knowing something and feeling it were two different things. After her mom left, Maya finally managed to play through Clair de Lune once. Her fingers felt stiff and uncertain, but she got through it. Then she went to bed and didn't sleep at all. The next morning felt surreal. Maya got dressed slowly, putting on the simple black dress her mom had bought for the occasion. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the girl staring back. Her face was pale, dark circles under her eyes from no sleep. She looked sick. "Maybe I am sick," she thought. "Maybe I should stay home." But she knew she couldn't. Mr. Chen had made it clear that backing out would cause problems. At school, the energy was electric. Everyone was excited about the talent show, which was scheduled for the last 2 periods of the day. The whole school would attend, plus parents who'd taken time off work, plus local community members. The auditorium seated about 900 people, and apparently it was going to be full. Maya went through her morning classes like a zombie. She didn't hear anything the teachers said. She didn't eat lunch. She just sat in the bathroom stall during lunch period, trying to breathe, trying not to panic. By 6th period, students were being dismissed to the auditorium. Performers had to report backstage 30 minutes early. Maya walked toward the auditorium on shaky legs, feeling like she was walking toward her own execution. Backstage was chaos. Students in costumes were practicing dance moves. A kid with a guitar was tuning it. A group of girls were doing vocal warm-ups. Everyone seemed excited and confident. Maya found a corner and tried to become invisible again, but it didn't work. She was on the roster. There was no hiding now. Mr. Chen found her and gave her an encouraging smile. "You're going to be great, Maya. Just remember, it's just you and the piano. Block everything else out." Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one who had to go out there. The show started and Maya could hear the crowd through the curtain. The auditorium was packed and loud with chatter and excitement. Principal Davis welcomed everyone and explained the format. There would be 20 acts total. Maya was number 17. She watched from the wings as act after act went on. A comedy sketch that got big laughs. A dance crew that brought down the house. A kid who did card tricks. Kelly Martinez sang a pop song, and even though she was kind of off-key, everyone cheered loudly because she was popular and confident and smiled the whole time. Each act that finished meant Maya was one step closer. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Her hands were ice cold despite the warm auditorium. She kept wiping her sweaty palms on her dress. Act 15 finished. Then Act 16, a kid playing guitar and singing. The crowd loved it. Then Maya heard Principal Davis say, "And now for our next performance, we have Maya Rodriguez on piano." This was it. No turning back. Maya's legs felt like they might give out as she walked toward the stage entrance. She could hear confused murmuring from the audience. Most people didn't even know who she was. She heard someone say, "Who's Maya Rodriguez?" The stage lights were blinding as she stepped out from behind the curtain. The grand piano sat in the center of the stage, looking enormous and intimidating under the spotlight. Maya walked toward it, each step feeling impossible. She could see the audience now, hundreds and hundreds of faces. Students filling the main section, parents and guests in the balcony. So many people, so many eyes. She felt dizzy. Someone in the back of the auditorium laughed. It wasn't even at her, probably at something else, but Maya heard it and her stomach dropped. More whispers rippled through the crowd. She caught sight of Kelly and her friend sitting in the third row. Kelly was whispering to her friend with a smirk on her face. Maya reached the piano and sat down on the bench. She adjusted it slightly, a habit from home. She positioned her hands over the keys. This was the moment. She needed to start. Just press the first key. Just begin, but she couldn't. Her hands were frozen. Her mind was completely blank. She couldn't remember the first note of Clair de Lune. She couldn't remember anything. It was like every piece of music she'd ever learned had been erased from her brain. The silence stretched out. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 15. The murmuring in the audience grew louder. Someone coughed. Someone else shifted in their seat. Maya could feel sweat forming on her forehead. Come on, she thought desperately. Just play. Just start anything. But her hands wouldn't move. The panic was overwhelming now. She was going to have to stand up and walk off stage. She was going to have to admit defeat in front of everyone. This was her nightmare coming true. Then, from somewhere in the middle of the auditorium, she heard it. A snicker. Then another. Then someone said, not quite quietly enough, "I knew she couldn't do it." More laughter. Not mean laughter exactly, but the kind of laughter that happens when something awkward is unfolding. The kind that makes you feel small and worthless and stupid. Maya felt tears starting to form. This was it. The worst moment of her life. She started to stand up, ready to run off stage, ready to never show her face at this school again. But then something happened. As she began to rise from the bench, her hand brushed against the piano keys accidentally. It made a sound. Just one note. A middle C, and suddenly Maya wasn't in the auditorium anymore. She was 7 years old, sitting on her grandmother's lap. She could almost smell her grandmother's perfume. That mix of lavender and vanilla. She could hear her grandmother's voice. When you can't find the words, let the piano speak for you. Maya sat back down. She closed her eyes, and she made a decision. She wasn't going to play Clair de Lune. She was going to play something else, something harder, something that said everything she'd been feeling for the past 3 years, something that would either be the biggest mistake of her life or the moment everything changed. She took one deep breath, and then she began to play. The first notes came out soft and delicate, like drops of water falling into a still pond. Maya's fingers found the keys with a certainty that surprised even her. She'd chosen Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor, one of the most difficult pieces in piano repertoire. It was dark and dramatic and powerful, nothing like the gentle Clair de Lune she'd planned. But right now, in this moment, it was the only piece that made sense. The opening was haunting, almost eerie. The murmuring in the auditorium died instantly. You could have heard a pin drop. People who'd been checking their phones slowly lowered them. Students who'd been slouched in their seats sat up straighter. Even Kelly stopped whispering to her friends. Maya kept her eyes closed. She wasn't in the auditorium anymore. She was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere deep inside herself where only the music existed. Her hands moved across the keys with fluid precision, each note ringing out clear and true. The piece built slowly, the tension rising. Her left hand played deep, thundering bass notes while her right hand danced across the higher keys. The contrast was stunning. It was like listening to a storm gathering strength, dark clouds rolling in, the air getting heavy with anticipation. In the audience, Mr. Chen's mouth had fallen open. He knew this piece. He knew how incredibly difficult it was. Professional concert pianists practiced for years to master it. And here was this 16-year-old girl, this shy student who'd hidden her talent away, playing it with a maturity and skill that seemed impossible. Maya's mom sat in the balcony with tears already streaming down her face. She'd heard Maya play at home countless times, but this was different. This wasn't Maya playing for herself in her bedroom. This was Maya pouring every ounce of emotion she'd bottled up for 3 years into this performance. Every lonely lunch period, every time someone looked through her like she didn't exist, every night crying into her pillow. Every moment of feeling invisible and worthless. It was all there in the music. The piece moved into its famous middle section where the melody soared above crashing chords. Maya's whole body moved with the music now. She swayed slightly, her face showing every emotion the piece demanded. In this moment, she wasn't the shy girl anymore. She was the music itself. Her fingers flew across the keys in passages that seemed physically impossible. Notes cascaded like a waterfall, each one perfectly articulated. The dynamics ranged from whisper soft to thunderously loud, and Maya controlled every single gradation with absolute precision. A boy in the 5th row leaned over to his friend and whispered, "Is this for real? Is she actually playing this?" His friend could only nod, too mesmerized to speak. Even Principal Davis, who'd seen 20 years of talent shows, stood at the side of the stage with his arms crossed, completely transfixed. He'd never seen anything like this. Not from a professional performer and certainly not from a high school student. The piece built to its first climax. Maya's hands crossing over each other in complex patterns. The piano singing and roaring at the same time. Then it pulled back, becoming soft and introspective, almost questioning. This was the part that always made Maya think of her grandmother. The gentle, sad part that felt like remembering something beautiful that was gone forever. Someone in the audience let out a quiet gasp. Not because of a mistake, but because of how beautiful it was. How could someone so young understand emotion like this? How could someone who never spoke express so much through her fingers? The music swelled again, building and building. Maya's fingers were starting to ache. Her shoulders were tense, but she didn't notice. She was completely lost in the performance. This wasn't about the audience anymore. This wasn't about proving anything to Kelly or Mr. Chen or anyone else. This was about finally letting everything out, finally speaking in the only language that had ever made sense to her. The technical demands of the piece were insane. There were jumps where her hands had to leap across the entire keyboard. There were sections where both hands played completely different rhythms at the same time. There were chords that required stretching her hands to their absolute limit. Maya executed all of it flawlessly, as if she'd been born to play this piece. In the audience, something remarkable was happening. Students who normally couldn't sit still for 5 minutes were completely motionless, hanging on every note. Parents who'd come just to support their own kids were leaning forward in their seats, forgetting about their phones and their schedules and everything else. The music had grabbed everyone and refused to let go. Kelly sat frozen in her seat, her earlier smirk completely gone. She'd expected Maya to fail, maybe play some simple song badly and run off stage crying. Instead, she was witnessing something she couldn't even fully comprehend. It made her feel small in a way she'd never felt before. Here was this girl she'd dismissed as nobody, as the weird, quiet girl, and she was creating something so beautiful it made Kelly's chest hurt. The piece moved into its final section, the grand finale. This was the part that required the most strength, the most endurance. Maya's arms were burning, but she pushed through. The music demanded it. Huge chords crashed down like thunder. The melody soared above everything, triumphant and powerful. Her hands moved so fast they were almost a blur. She struck the final ascending run of notes, building and building, higher and higher. Then the last massive chord, all 10 fingers coming down on the keys with everything she had. The sound filled the entire auditorium, resonating in everyone's chest, and then silence. Maya's hands remained on the keys for a moment, the final chord still ringing in the air. Her eyes were still closed. Her chest heaved as she caught her breath. Slowly, she opened her eyes. For exactly 3 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The silence was so complete it felt like the world had stopped spinning. Then it happened. The eruption of sound was like nothing Maya had ever heard. The entire auditorium exploded. Every single person was on their feet. The applause was deafening, thunderous, overwhelming. Students were screaming and cheering. Parents were clapping so hard their hands had to hurt. Teachers were shaking their heads in disbelief, many wiping tears from their eyes. "Encore! Encore!" someone started chanting, and within seconds the entire auditorium had picked it up. "Encore! Encore!" Maya sat frozen at the piano, unable to process what was happening. This couldn't be real. This had to be a dream. She looked out at the sea of standing people, all of them looking at her with expressions of joy and amazement and respect. Her mom was crying openly in the balcony, not even trying to hide it. Mr. Chen was clapping with his hands over his head, a huge smile on his face. Principal Davis looked like he'd just witnessed a miracle. Even Kelly was on her feet, clapping along with everyone else. Though her expression was complicated, a mix of shock and something that might have been respect, or maybe jealousy, or maybe both, the applause continued. It didn't stop. If anything, it got louder. Students were stomping their feet now. The chanting of encore grew more insistent. Maya looked at Mr. Chen in the wings. He was nodding enthusiastically, gesturing for her to play again. Play again? She'd barely survived playing once, but the adrenaline was coursing through her now, and something had shifted inside her. That tight knot of fear in her chest had loosened. Maybe it hadn't disappeared completely, but it wasn't controlling her anymore. She turned back to the piano. The audience cheered even louder when they realized she was going to play again. She didn't choose another difficult piece this time. Instead, she chose something her grandmother used to play for her when she was little, a simple, beautiful piece by Chopin, the Nocturne in E-flat major. It was like a lullaby, gentle and sweet and full of love. As the first notes floated through the auditorium, the crowd quieted down, but remained standing. This piece was completely different from the first. Soft where the other had been powerful, tender where the other had been dramatic. Maya played it like she was talking to her grandmother, telling her about everything that had happened, thanking her for the gift of music. When she finished the second piece, the applause was just as loud, just as enthusiastic. Maya stood up from the piano bench on shaky legs. She was supposed to bow, she knew that, but she felt awkward and unsure. She gave a small, stiff bow and practically ran off stage. The moment she was in the wings, her legs almost gave out. Mr. Chen caught her arm to steady her. Maya, that was extraordinary. Do you understand what you just did? She shook her head, still in shock. Students who'd never said a word to her were coming up, congratulating her, asking where she learned to play like that. The other performers were staring at her with awe. One girl said, "I don't even want to go on after that. How are we supposed to follow that?" Maya found a chair and sat down heavily, her hands trembling from the adrenaline. She'd done it. Somehow, impossibly, she'd actually done it. And she hadn't just survived. She'd done something she never imagined possible. For 4.5 minutes, she'd made 900 people stop everything and just listen. The rest of the talent show was a blur. Maya stayed backstage, trying to calm her racing heart and shaking hands. Other acts performed, but she could barely focus on them. Students kept coming up to her, people she'd never spoken to, saying things like, "That was insane," and "Where did you learn to play like that?" She managed weak smiles and quiet thank yous, still unable to fully process what had just happened. When the show finally ended and they announced the winners, Maya wasn't surprised when they called her name for first place. The applause that followed her back onto the stage was just as loud as before. Principal Davis handed her a trophy and a $200 gift card to a music store. But honestly, the prize didn't matter. What mattered was that she'd faced her biggest fear and survived. More than survived, actually. After the assembly, Maya was walking through the hallway toward the exit when Kelly Martinez approached her. Maya's first instinct was to look away, to hurry past, but something made her stop. "Hey," Kelly said, and her voice was different than usual. Softer, less confident. "That was really amazing." "I mean it." Maya nodded, unsure what to say. Kelly shifted her weight from one foot to the other, looking uncomfortable. "Look, I was kind of awful to you before the show. I don't know. I guess I thought you couldn't really play or something. That was wrong. I'm sorry, it wasn't a perfect apology." Kelly didn't acknowledge all the years of ignoring her, of treating her like she was invisible. But it was something, and the fact that Kelly looked genuinely embarrassed, that she'd actually walked up to apologize at all, meant something. "Thanks," Maya said quietly. Then, surprising herself, she added, "It's okay." Kelly smiled, relieved, and walked away. Maya stood there for a moment, realizing that she'd just had a normal conversation with Kelly Martinez. 2 days ago, that would have seemed impossible. Outside, her mom was waiting by the car, still looking emotional. She pulled Maya into a tight hug the moment she saw her. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "Your grandmother would be so proud." On the drive home, Maya's phone started buzzing. She'd never gotten this many notifications before. Friend requests on social media, text messages from classmates asking for her number from mutual friends, comments on the school's Facebook page where someone had posted about her performance. It was overwhelming, but in a completely different way than the stage had been overwhelming. That night, Maya sat at her piano at home, but she didn't play. She just sat there, running her fingers over the keys gently. The piano felt different somehow. It wasn't just her secret hiding place anymore. She'd shared it with the world, and the world hadn't rejected her. The world had stood up and cheered. Her brother knocked on her door, which was rare. He was 18 and usually too cool to talk to his little sister. "Hey," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Mom showed me a video someone posted. That was pretty sick, Maya. I didn't know you could play like that." "Thanks," Maya said, genuinely surprised. Her brother hadn't complimented her on anything in years. "For real, though, you should do something with that. Like that's actual talent." After he left, Maya thought about his words. Should she do something with her talent? The idea felt both exciting and terrifying. But maybe that was okay. Maybe the best things in life were supposed to be a little scary. The next day at school was surreal. People said hi to her in the hallways. Actual hi using her name. A group of girls invited her to sit with them at lunch, and after a moment of hesitation, Maya said yes. The conversation was a little awkward at first. She still wasn't great at small talk, but they were nice to her. They asked about piano, how long she'd been playing, if she took lessons. "I mostly taught myself," Maya admitted. "I watch videos online and just practice a lot." "That's crazy," one of the girls said. "You're like naturally gifted or something." During lunch, Mr. Chen found her. "Maya, can I talk to you for a second?" She excused herself and followed him to a quieter corner of the cafeteria. "I got an email this morning," he said, and he looked excited. "There was someone in the audience yesterday, a woman named Dr. Patricia Lin. She's a piano professor at the State Conservatory of Music." Maya's eyes widened. The State Conservatory was one of the best music schools in the region. "She wants to meet with you and your parents," Mr. Chen continued. "She was so impressed with your performance that she wants to discuss opportunities for you. There's a summer intensive program for talented young musicians, and she thinks you'd be perfect for it. It includes a scholarship." Maya felt dizzy. A real music professor wanted to meet with her? This kind of thing didn't happen to invisible girls who ate lunch alone. "I know it's a lot to take in," Mr. Chen said, seeing her expression. "But Maya, yesterday you showed everyone what you're capable of. This is just the beginning. You could really do something special with your music if you wanted to." That evening, Dr. Lin came to Maya's apartment. She was an elegant woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a warm smile. She sat with Maya and her parents in their small living room and talked about music with a passion that reminded Maya of her grandmother. "Maya, I've been teaching piano for 30 years, Dr. Lin said. "I've heard thousands of students play. What you did yesterday, that level of technical skill combined with that emotional depth, at your age, it's remarkable. You have a genuine gift," she explained the summer program. It was 8 weeks of intensive study with professional musicians, master classes, daily practice, and performance opportunities. The scholarship would cover everything, including room and board. "I'll be honest with you," Dr. Lin continued. "The program is challenging. You'd be working with students who've been training seriously for years, some of them since they were very young, but I believe you can handle it. More than that, I think you need it. Raw talent like yours needs to be nurtured and developed." Maya's parents looked at her, waiting for her reaction. This was her decision. "Can I think about it?" Maya asked quietly. "Of course," Dr. Lin said. "Take your time. But I hope you'll say yes. The world needs to hear you play." After Dr. Lin left, Maya went to her room and sat at her piano. 8 weeks away from home, training with serious musicians, being pushed out of her comfort zone even further. The old Maya, the one from a week ago, would have said no immediately. Too scary. Too much, but something had changed. When she'd walked onto that stage, when she'd played in front of 900 people, something inside her had shifted. She'd discovered that she was braver than she thought. That her music mattered. That hiding wasn't the same as being safe. She played a few notes, then a few more. Before long, she was playing one of Chopin's etudes, a piece she'd been working on for months. Her fingers moved confidently across the keys. The music filled her room, spilled out into the hallway, floated through the whole apartment. Her mom appeared in the doorway, listening with a smile. "I think I want to do it," Maya said, still playing. "The summer program. I'm scared, but I think I want to try." Her mom's smile grew wider. "I think that's wonderful, sweetie." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The video of Maya's performance that someone had posted online started getting shared widely. It reached 10,000 views, then 50,000, then 200,000. People from all over were commenting. Professional musicians were sharing it, saying things like, "This is what real talent looks like," and "She's going to be a star." Maya made an Instagram account to share her music. She posted a video of herself playing at home, and within a week she had 15,000 followers. People were asking when they could hear her perform again, if she had recordings, if she gave lessons. At school, Maya was no longer invisible. People knew her name. They smiled at her in the hallways. Teachers who'd barely noticed her before stopped to congratulate her. She even made real friends, kids who genuinely liked talking to her, who invited her to hang out after school. The shy girl who'd spent 3 years trying to disappear had become someone people wanted to know. But the strangest part was that Maya was still herself. She was still quiet, still thoughtful, still more comfortable with piano keys than with words. The difference was that now she understood her quietness wasn't weakness. It was just who she was. One afternoon, a few weeks after the talent show, Maya was walking past the music room when she heard someone struggling with a piano piece. She peeked in and saw a freshman girl, maybe 13, looking frustrated. Maya hesitated. The old her would have kept walking. But the new her, or maybe the real her that had been hiding all along, pushed open the door. "Hey," Maya said softly. "Do you want some help with that?" The girl looked up, eyes wide. "You're Maya Rodriguez. You're like famous now." Maya blushed. "Not famous. But I do know that piece you're playing. I could show you a trick for that difficult part if you want." The girl nodded eagerly, scooting over on the piano bench. Maya sat down and demonstrated the tricky passage, showing her how to finger it differently. They spent 20 minutes working on it together, and by the end, the girl was playing it much better. "Thank you so much," the girl said. "You're really nice." Walking home that day, Maya realized something important. Her music wasn't just about her anymore. It could help other people too. It could inspire them, teach them, make them feel less alone. That was the real gift her grandmother had given her. Not just the piano itself, but the understanding that music was meant to be shared. 3 months later, Maya stood at the entrance to the State Conservatory of Music, her suitcase beside her, ready to start the summer intensive program. She was nervous, definitely, but she was also excited, ready. She'd learned that sometimes the things that scare us the most are exactly the things we need to do. She pulled out her phone and posted a photo of the conservatory. Entrance with a caption, "New chapter. Still scared, but I'm done hiding." Within minutes, hundreds of supportive comments poured in. But Maya didn't need them to know she was doing the right thing. She could feel it in her heart, the same place where the music lived. The invisible girl was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who'd learned that courage wasn't about not being afraid. It was about being afraid and doing it anyway. And that made all the difference.